Have you ever wanted to see the process of how you take raw sheep's wool like this and turn it into beautiful finished yarn that we can knit, crochet, weave, and do all of our projects with? I definitely always have, and this summer I was lucky enough to be able to satisfy my curiosity by visiting the Junction Fiber Mill. It is co-founded and run by Amanda and Peggy, and I'm so excited to be able to share that tour with you today. One quick note, this is a working fiber mill, and as we were walking around, there is a lot of loud machinery sounds in the background. I did my best to kind of reprocess the noise and isolate Amanda's voice as she's talking, but it might be a little bit loud, just as a bit of a warning. So the raw material that goes into the Junction Fiber Mill is a raw sheep's fleece. The first step is scouring and washing, and then after the scouring and washing step, when the wool is clean, it goes into the picker. So I'm now going to throw it back to Amanda, and she's going to explain and show how the picker kind of takes these really tightly bunched locks of wool and opens them up and makes them fluffy and airy for the next steps in the processing.
So the first step in going through the mill process is the picker. The picker is a little bit of a set it and forget it type of machine. So its purpose is to do three things: to pick apart the locks in preparation for carding, to start the blending process, and to weed out some of the vegetation, or the VM, that's like hay and other things that are in with the sheep all year. So here's an example of wool once it's been washed or scoured. This is from my co-founder Peggy's flock of Corriedale sheep. Her farm is Savage Heart Farm, and it is super soft, super crimpy. This is a natural black wool. You can see here how the tips get bleached out by the sun, but you can see it's like a cloth right now. So what's going to happen is this machine, we're going to turn it on, and it would feed the fiber through. The fan is what's going to blow it up and over that metal arch. The feeder is a big roller under here with some really sharp teeth on it that actually does the picking of the fiber. We gotta wait to hear it till we start the feeder, which is this part. So now it's gonna run really slowly and feed the fiber through. And the operator's job is simply to slowly pass it. Well, we're not blending this with any other fiber, so I just sort of pick from the bag and throw it in. Follow me around to the back. You're going to see that it's coming down a little more like fluffy clouds. So it's a lot less fluffy than it was before, and that's important for the next stage, which is the carder. The next step of the process is the carder. It's going to start to align the fibers and organize what is kind of some loose blob of wool into a strand that we can work with. So getting it closer and closer to being yarn. So we put on this belt here about 1/2 the fiber. And we want to make sure there's no like toenails or anything like that that can go through. Shetland.
Oh.
Yes. So I can tell it's got these like beautiful little ringlets here. That's a Shetland thing.
Oh my
so
God.
beautiful. What this machine's gonna do when I turn it on is all the rollers are gonna start turning, and it's going to start to align those fibers. As the belt slowly gets it on, they'll come out the other end as a web. And then it'll be roving by the time it goes through a little orifice into the can coiler. So we're going to go back here. I do adjust the amount of air that I'm going to blow on from that noisy compressor. I don't want to send it too much or it'll fly into the cage, but just the right amount to keep things going that direction. I'm watching back here to make sure that the roving is going into this can coiler evenly. At the start, it can take a little bit of finessing just to make sure that it's not getting jammed in here. And I can see it's coming out like soft serve ice cream. And it's going to fill up this spring-loaded pan, and that just helps us keep it nice and organized. And so our mill is considered a semi-worsted mill. The carder is part of a woolen process. But from here, we use a pin drafter to get it to be sort of more of a worsted look. So the difference is the fibers off of this machine are kind of going every which way. And if we were in a woolen mill, instead of taking that web of fiber and turning it into one big fat roving, we would split it into pencil rovings and wind those onto cones, and then those would just be directly spun. Instead, we take the whole web, we send it this way, put it through this little orifice, which puts a little twist and compression onto it, and it makes a big fat roving, which we're then going to work to align the fibers in the next step, so that we use draft to create the diameter of yarn that we want to make. So, worsted versus woolen. Usually worsted spun starts as combed top, which our Making Tracks line of yarn and our Roots line of yarn starts as combed top that we purchased from Chargers, the big mill in South Carolina. So that is actually like a fully worsted product. But the stuff that we scour, pick, and card here is in sort of a woolen state, and then the pin drafter makes it have like a comb top worsted effect because we're going to send the fiber through these combs that are called faller bars. Basically, they comb out the fiber so that the fibers are going in the same direction parallel to each other. It also changes the weight of the roving, so the thickness or thinness coming in. So for our farm to yarn roving, we put 6 stacks of roving behind the machine, and then we send it through and it comes out as one. So not only is it aligning those fibers, it's also making the roving uniform and blending those 6 different stacks. So like if at any point in the carder there is a little section with more or less black in our gray yarn, breaking them into 6 piles and sending them through not once, not twice, but sometimes 3 or 4 times is going to make sure that's super uniform by the time it gets on the spinner. If you're hand spinning, pin drafted roving is like super nice to work with because you don't have to really do much work to draft it because they're all going in the same direction. So what's going to happen is there's, you can see 3 of the 4 layers of bars. Here, there's 2 top rows, and then facing up, there's 1 more row underneath it. And the bars are going to travel around on an infinite loop, basically, kind of dropping down and up as they go. And they're traveling to bring the fiber this direction, and then it's going to go through this final roller called the cot, which is going to pull the fiber at whatever speed we want to set it to. That'll control the amount of drafting that happens in this machine. As a demo, we're working with our Making Tracks combed top. So this again is combed top that we purchased from a different mill, and it is dyed all different colors throughout the strand. And when you can tell it's like super thick. So instead of putting 6 of these together, we're just going to take this one single strand, send it through the pin drafter, and the work that it's doing now is not to make it uniform, it's simply to draft it so that it's a reasonable size by the time it hits the spinner. Okay, looks good to go. I'm going to start it. Okay, so I've got a trick on this. I'm going to carefully keep it through and gate. Grab it on the other side and put it in. Oh my god. Yeah. And just like on the carder, there's a spring-loading pan here ready to catch the fiber. So it comes in about 6 times longer. It comes out 6 times longer than it goes in. So it's about 6 to 1 draft. And with the Making Track, you can really see, like, on this end, you'll see a section, that's this wide. So this is the yellow coming through. And if we go to the other side, wait a second, you can see that comes through about this long. Here we go, yellow. And by the time that goes to the spinner, it's going to draft like 10 or 20 more times. So you're going to end up with yards and yards of that yellow. And it makes for a really slow transition as you knit. You can see it's not quick striping, it's more of a gradient effect. Okay, so after it's been pin drafted, it's time for the magic. This is the spinner. This one was brand new to us about 2 years ago. We got it from Italy. We imported it, and the job of the spinner is, like it says, to spin the roving. So right here is the point when yarn gets made. Up until then, it is roving that we've pin drafted 2 to 4 times, and this is where all the drafting is happening between all these rollers. So it starts out, this thick here, and as it travels through these 5 different rollers, it's pulling it apart or drafting the fibers to be thinner and thinner and thinner. And then right here is where the twist gets put on, and the twist is based on how fast we set that spindle speed to go. So you can see down here is where the belts are operating. And this is the builder. It just goes up and down slowly to wind that yarn onto the bobbin. And you can see these guys are almost full. So if we stick around for a minute, we'll get to see the machine spin it, which is pretty cool. But we have our stacks of roving in the back. There were 12 of them. Now there's less because some of them ran out. But we have 12 spindles, so that's our capacity on this machine. And they're just sort of slowly going up and over. We just installed a static bar on this machine. A fiber mill lives and dies by the amount of static in it, so it's very important for us to eliminate as much static as possible. One way is to keep it superhuman in here. Another way is to add, this basically changes like the static field by putting electrons, or I'm not quite clear on how it works, but it works super well onto the fiber at that point. Yeah, so this is the Plying machine. It is another spinner. We used to do all of our yarn on this machine from roving to finished yarn. But when we got our new spinner, we decided to basically have that one dedicated to the single plies because it has more spindles, it's faster, it really does a great job with singles. And this one became our dedicated Plying machine. This machine is about 15 years old, built by the guy that refurbished all of our green pieces of equipment. And its job is to take the single ply of yarn and just run it through this first roller here, put the twist in the opposite direction to create plied yarn. And we only make plied yarn here. We don't do singles for a couple of reasons. One is if you don't ply it, it's not balanced. So it can come off of the finished bobbins and want to twist back on itself. So when you put the twist in the opposite direction, it comes off the bobbins just hangs, nice and balanced. And other reasons are we like to rinse our yarn after we spin it, and if we took it into singles on a cone, for instance, we wouldn't be able to rinse it. So anyways, I'll just turn it on so you can see how it runs, but you're just going to notice that these 4 here, which are active ones right now, these travelers are going to start spinning around the ring. You probably won't even see them when it's on. The singles also have travelers, but again, when it's running, they go super fast.
See anything.
So I'm going to pull the big red button. So we can do 2-ply or 3-ply yarn. This is a 3-ply. You can see 1, 2, 3 going down into 1. And again, we're not even using this back roller or middle roller. It's just going through the front roller here. And again, the builder is just slowly going up and down, distributing it on the bottom. So this is the skein winder. Its job is to take the yarn off of the bobbins into skeins or loops of fiber. So this is what it is when it's finished. We've got a bunch of skeins hanging here. And all we do is simply put the number of rotations that we want on our counter here. And then we just press start and it spins around. Pretty simple. When we're really slammed at the mill, we will occasionally put 8 more bobbins on here, so we can do 16 at a time. But then it gets a lot to sort of watch them and make sure that when they run out, you have another one to tie on. And yep, and that's when we will hit the stop. And we're going to tie on, we have this exact same yarn here. At our mill, 1 knot is acceptable because we don't want to waste all that yarn. So sometimes skeins have a single knot in from this. And when we're doing our variegated yarn, it's important that it be an exact match. So we make sure to tie on the exact bobbin that we've just cut from the ply. So there won't be any color changing. That makes sense. But we also mark which ones have knots so that we make sure when people order, they get only 1 skein per order that has a knot. This is the hanker. She's kind of famous on social media by this point. Everyone, for whatever reason, of all of our equipment, the hanker gets to be the star. And it's a really funny story. Peggy found on social media a little 10-second clip of someone with a similar device, and at the time she and I, we were operating the mill, just the 2 of us, and we would do this for every single skein, and then we'd do it like around her head. And, it would look kind of like this, and we'd be like, oh, that's fine. But after a while, making a lot of yarn every day, that got tiring. So she found a device like this on Instagram, and the mill was like, I don't know, our friend made it for us, and we have no idea where you could get one. So she sent it to our friend of the mill, John. John is like our equipment nerd who's just like an angel to us whenever we have anything we can't figure out ourselves. And he came back like 4 days later and gave us this prototype that he made himself. And the mechanics of it are quite simple, but I'll show you, it works great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now they all have the same amount of twist. And every time, they're very uniform. So this is our one of our variegated yarns. You can see all of the different colors in it. We have a lot of fun with the dye pots here. But yeah, the hanking is, after this point, we just put a label on it. If it's our yarn, if it's custom processing yarn, we just bag it up for the customer. And that is the very last step. I know I think people love this because it's not that often people are making their own yarn at home, but a lot of times you need to get it from skein to hank. And I think seeing this is just like, oh, that would save so much time. I do it on a doorknob at home.
Having the opportunity to see such a beautiful mill and the equipment running and everyone working together was absolutely incredible. So thank you again so much to Junction Fiber Mill and Amanda and Peggy for coordinating that visit with me. I really highly appreciate it. I can highly recommend that you check out Junction Fiber Mill. I will leave the links to all of their information in the description down below. I love their yarn. I'm so excited to use it. They were kind enough to gift me these bits of yarn, and I love them both. This one is like very autumnal Vermont. This one is also really cool because it's called a mill blend light. When the wool goes through the spinner, there's some extra fluff left over sometimes at the beginning and end when you retie knots, when ends break off. And so they've actually gathered up all of what's usually the waste and they respun it into yarn like this. So this is the lights all together and it makes this beautiful like rosy brownie rose color. It's just really cool. I also got a background look at the back storerooms with all of their gorgeous yarns and the sample sweaters that were knit with their yarns. Junction Fiber Mill also goes to a lot of different yarn shows, so again, I highly recommend that you check them out. Thank you again so much for the tour and all of the fascinating things that I learned about how raw wool gets processed into beautiful knitting yarn that I cannot wait to use. And I hope that you enjoy this video, even if there is a lot of loud mill noises in the background. Other than that, I'll see you all again soon. Bye. You know, I feel like with these yarns, what I want to do is I want to make a pair of socks. I was considering putting them together, but I don't think that the colors quite go. So I think I'm going to make a pair of socks with this and a pair of socks with this. I think that'd be great.